What's up, everybody? We're coming at you like a back screen on a flex cut. We're going to give you the effort of a chase down block. We're going to give you the energy of slapping the floor on defense. And we're here to dazzle you with the Euro step and then finish you off with that step back three dagger. Welcome in, everybody. This is the Bucket Bros. I'm Ronnie West. That's Bobby Marcico. How's everybody doing today? How are you, Bobby?
Well, I'm doing great. So thanks for
This
asking.
wasn't for the listeners. I don't think they can. I can't hear them, so that's okay.
We're taking callers.
Yeah. Open that line up. So it has been a packed full of basketball week at the Olympics. It's been a lot of fun to watch. Thankfully, we've both managed to get streaming services so that we can watch all these games and try to just inhale basketball like we've been doing like the last few weeks, I'd say, since like the exhibition tournament. I've been watching, I think, all but two of the USA games and a lot of the other ones during the Olympics. How much have you consumed, Bobby? What has been your take on how you've been processing in this basketball over the last couple of weeks?
Well, we're not getting sponsored by them, but I caved and I got the Peacock subscription so that you can go back. You can for all those who don't know, you can go back. You can watch old games on Peacock from start to finish. So that's really helpful. If you care, if you're really into it, like us weirdos, then
yeah.
No, that's highly recommend.
I ended up getting YouTube TV, and the only thing is with the Olympic coverage, and I don't know if you've had this, but like a lot of the non-US games, it starts like in the middle of the second quarter. And so it's like, oh, I didn't get that first half, but I think it's what was played live. And so they just replay like the main thing. It's not the full game. So that's the only thing is whatever information I'm giving you, I'm void of a lot of first quarter action in non-US basketball. But other than that,
Simone Biles was doing something in that first quarter. So yeah, they didn't even bother. They didn't even bother turning a camera on.
That makes sense. Or Ledecky was swimming. So
yeah, exactly.
I personally have to go back here and we're going to do some errors and corrections. For me, I will make sure that I self-check myself. And if you guys aren't doing it and aren't on there making sure that saying, oh, Ronnie, you're totally wrong on this one. I was very close. I think I almost said that he may have gotten one, but James Harden was on the 2012 team. They won gold. So that I think is his only accomplishment professionally. He does. But yeah, to me, it's unusual why he wasn't on the last two teams. Like if he's supposed to be this great superstar, why wasn't he on the 2016 and the 2020 teams? That's just my take. And granted, I don't know why I have this need to bag on him, but I do.
He's made an NBA Finals, by the way, with the OKC Thunder. Often forgotten. He has been in an NBA Finals.
Not as a starter.
That's true.
So, the one thing here we were mentioning was that since I mentioned it's kind of taken legs of its own, was Rui Hachimura. I wasn't sure what team he played for, but he is actually with the Lakers still.
I take credit for that one. That was okay. Yeah. That's my category of knowledge that I'm supposed to have. So I take credit for getting that. Hachimura is still with the Lakers and wasn't moved. For some reason, I thought he was in a transaction, and it was
I couldn't remember if he had been playing the last year. So even in the U.S., I thought maybe he had moved on internationally. But breaking news from him, even though it's a few days old, was that he left the Japan team. I think he had an ankle-foot issue, and so he had to leave the team, and so he has left the Olympics. But Japan only played one more game. They were eliminated. I think, I had all of the stuff written down here. Sorry. They were the second worst team. Puerto Rico had the worst point differential.
The Watanabes just couldn't pull it off.
Yeah. So, yeah, the fighting Josh Hawkinsons, who I saw something about that he dramatically changed the Japanese national team. Honestly, he created a post presence, which they didn't have. He was averaging 20 points a game and revitalized and re-energized that entire Japanese basketball team, which hadn't really done anything in the international setting. And they are crediting him with making them come back to the Olympic scene. So that was kind of cool. It was a guy who He born in Seattle, played at Washington State, was a Cougar. Didn't really have much going on for him in the U.S. as far as basketball options, and then went to Japan and ended up playing there and like transformed his game. Wasn't what he was in college, and is now like one of the stars in like the Japan League, and ended up getting Japan citizenship. And so now he's a part of the team. That's why if you were wondering like, who's the big white guy in the Japanese team? That seems kind of odd. I think I texted you that. I'm like, look, this is not what I was expecting to see when I turned on the Japan game. But hey, good for him. That's
shout out to Josh.
Yeah, that's one awesome way to end up getting yourself in the Olympics. I think it's hats off to him is what I have to say.
Do you think if you and I get dual citizenship in Taiwan that we'd be tall enough to play there?
Maybe tall enough to play, but I don't think it would change anything. We'd still be the whatever Taiwan finished at last time, which is funny because I played at like an Ecuadorian league and I'm all of 5'8", but I was the tallest. It was me and my other buddy who was like 6 foot, and we were the two tallest people on the field by far. So maybe that would be the case, but we'll see. We had talked about this one. I think you had corrected me in the show about Westbrook. I didn't know. I thought maybe he got in 2, but he only got in the 1. And the one I actually had to go and do some research because I've seen so many different numbers of this as far as the non-U.S. NBA players in 92 when the Dream Team started in Barcelona. I've seen 5, 9, but I went and tried to find the amount of people who had like NBA experience. And so it was 21 non-U.S. born players in 92, and there were 68 this time around. So it's definitely increased. It's maybe not as dramatic as some of the stuff I saw where was they only played 9 and now they're playing like 92. So yeah, it's just crazy to think of the fact that I don't know if you were old enough to even remember that Dream Team.
I mean, when I came online, when I started forming memories is about when that Dream Team was formed. Yeah. So it's I think I remember the posters, the T-shirts, trading cards, all that fun stuff associated with it. But I certainly wasn't watching the games.
Yeah, so I remember seeing Larry the Legend like barely getting on the floor. Like it was, you could see that his knees were just done, and you felt bad for him, but you were glad that he was a part of this team. But he was the oldest player on that team back then, and I feel like anybody who watched that was like, oh man, Larry's ancient. Like, I can't believe he's here doing this. Like, he needs to retire. And then we turn around in this Olympic team and there's 3 players older than Larry Bird, KD, Steph, and LeBron. And LeBron is by far the best player on the court of any team. He's been better than Giannis, been better than Jokic. And so it's just nuts, the fact that their longevities, that they're all 3 or 4 years older than Larry and Magic were at the 92 Olympics. So to me, it's nuts to think of how far basketball's come internationally, how far we've come in recovery and being able to keep people healthy longer. So it's just really cool to see. Sorry, ran off on a tangent.
But enough about us. About us.
So let's get into the U.S. games. Their first one was against Serbia. I think everybody kind of thought that this would probably be the toughest game just because they had like the most NBA talent out of the three other teams in the group. And it kind of shaped up that way. I think it was definitely a feeling out, like their first game in the Olympics. I know it was like Steph's first game. And so it definitely it took a minute or two for them to kind of get in that groove of the first unit. But obviously, as soon as KD came on the floor, and then he went 5 for 5 is what I had written down here. Like, he had just went off. I think he ended up going like 7 for 7 in that first half.
Missed one shot in the game, and I think that was in the second half. He made everything else.
So it was. I got lots of different notes that are on here, and obviously, if I keep saying that, it doesn't help much. But the things that I see here is like Anthony Edwards is definitely a predominant name that keeps popping up, and obviously, I'm watching him as a Timberwolves fan. So to me, this is our Olympics as a Timberwolves because we've got 4 players in the Olympics, or at least we did when we started. And so, and he's obviously the highlight. Everything I see, it's about him and how he's kind of I feel like last year at FIBA, everybody was like, "Oh, Anthony Edwards this is his coming out party," but it's like this feels like his superstar coming out party. The way that he's been playing and just kind of dominating the game and making it look easy. So, but yeah, that was I noticed it was a very physical game. There was a few scuffles that kind of had happened, and which you would kind of think, but for the most part, I think Olympic play was very well. It was tame. There was no cheap shots. It didn't seem like there was any kind of incidents at all, and you would kind of hope for that in an international competition. So, but yeah, USA ended up winning 110-84. I think there was some sloppy play towards the end, but watching that second unit, I think KD said it earlier, or I saw it earlier today, was that there's two different styles that are happening with these teams. Like that starting lineup with Embiid and LeBron and Steph, it definitely they're a lot better in the half court sets, but Embiid doesn't move as fast. And I think Paul Pierce was talking about how Anthony Davis is probably the most important player on the team, just because of the defense he brings, his length, his versatility, the way he can run the floor. It's just something that no other team can match. And so it's definitely been fun to watch like those two different teams. And I'll stop talking because I feel like I've dominated a lot of the conversation. What were your takeaways from Serbia?
So yeah, I mean, it was certainly a fun game to watch. Maybe expected it to be a little bit more competitive, but it's clear the attitude that the U.S. team is taking from the exhibition games versus the games that really matter. We had mentioned like, do you think there's that next gear in them? And you said I think they got at least a couple, and it's really starting to show. Um, Looking at Serbia, something that didn't change from the exhibition games is they had a really hard time getting in the paint. Some slick passes were required, some good movement on offense in order to get past the U.S. But gosh, if they weren't slick 3-point shooters, the discrepancy in the score would have been a lot bigger. So they were relying really heavily on 3-point shooting and fast break. If it wasn't fast break points, they weren't getting too many buckets around in the paint there. Certainly one of the big takeaways is Joker doing Joker things. It was the Olympic version of what he does to the NBA. I'm sure you guys have all heard this ad nauseum, but Joker's on and off. Nikola Jokic's on off during that game was 0. Which is pretty impressive considering that the rest of the team is whatever they lost by. So when he was off the floor, that minus 26 or whatever it was, that's when that discrepancy popped up. It just shows you how dominant of a player he was. I mean, heck, he was doing this in the playoffs before the Nuggets had a healthy team during their championship run. You just see like these massive swings in the on-offs for him. So that it holds up. Hey, it holds up in international competition.
It almost cost them though in that last game against South Sudan. Like, thankfully, Bogdanovich went unconscious and just started hitting everything that he was shooting. But yeah, they were so close to losing that. Granted, I think they did end up blowing them out probably in the last 10 minutes of that. 10 minutes in the fourth quarter. But yeah, that was probably one of the most entertaining games was South Sudan, Serbia. I know I'm jumping ahead 2 games, but the way that they fought that out, I was really hoping to see South Sudan. I know we talked about them last time of like, this is going to be a movie. I was really hoping that they would beat Serbia because I feel like that would have been like the icing on the cake. Like they would have lost in the first round of the brackets. That to me would have been your story tale, like a fairy tale ending of kind of getting to that point and beating Serbia and making a big win. Like they got the win over Puerto Rico. But yeah, I was really hoping to see more out of South Sudan after hearing that story and watching them play the U.S. and their play continued on through the rest of the tournament. Like the way that they were just gritty and it's cool seeing the guys like almost begging for roster spots in the NBA. I think it was Omat like put out a tweet and was saying, "Hey, I'll come get me. I'm ready to play." And so it's cool. I hope those guys do that. I know for me, I'm kind of really hoping that Carlik Jones is still down the street so I can go watch him this year in the G League, but I got a feeling he's going to get pulled up. So yeah, they were definitely a fun team to watch, but obviously so is the U.S. and that's been the highlight of this, which leads us to the next game was against South Sudan, which didn't have the same cachet as the first one. Like that one with them going up 16 and then having the U.S. kind of come back and LeBron's drive. But it was definitely they changed the lineup. I know Jason Tatum, we didn't even talk about, like, didn't play in that first game against Serbia, but I think that's one of those things we're going to see, because in the second game, like, Joel Embiid didn't play against South Sudan. So it's cool how Kerr has been devising these lineups to kind of attack what the deficiencies of the other teams are. But yeah, they came out, and I guess you had mentioned that step up. The first time I'd seen them like really turn on that intensity was in the South Sudan game at the beginning, because I think they knew they had taken that punch from them in that exhibition game. And so, yeah, they held them to 14 points. I got down here as the intensity of AD blocking, Ant's full court press and steal, and there's just lots of active hands. And so to me, you definitely saw that turn up. And I think we're going to see another gear here in the knockout stages. But as far as South Sudan, what were some of the things that you saw, if you had a chance to watch that game?
Yeah. No, I was luckily I was able to look back and watch it in retrospect. But I mean, there was definitely from beginning to end a sense of dominance from the U.S. team. At no point did I feel like South Sudan really was gaining enough steam to put the U.S. on their heels. Certainly, what they had to bring was energy, because I mean that's really yeah, exactly, yeah. It's energy and shooting. I mean, that's what I think we're going to see this on repeat. Is this is what these teams have to bring to the table when they're up against the U.S., because they're not going to get much else. Obviously, Sudan's got a lot of length and athleticism, and yeah, there's definitely a couple guys that you mentioned that are going to be vying for NBA roster spots this upcoming year. I mean, they look like NBA players. Some of these guys were absolutely fantastic out there. But yeah, I just it's U.S. versus the rest of the world in this competition, and you know, you're not going to hear my tune change as we talk about the next game either. I think Brazil's going to look very similar as well. Obviously, we'll talk about that more after that game. But I'm honestly I'm excited for when the U.S. has to face. Well, they're either going to face likely Serbia or Australia in the knockout rounds next. I mean, I would feel bad for Serbia if they had to face U.S. a third time, but I mean, credit to them, I guess, for getting to the next round. But yeah, I can only say so much about how the U.S. just looks. I mean, even the sloppy play going back and forth. You can see that the U.S. is still trying to figure out their sort of continuity, if you will, sort of their flow, which they're doing obviously a pretty good job for a makeshift team. But our slop versus your slop, it wins out. I say us, like I'm a part of the team, but I take a little bit. Yeah.
No, I think it's very true. It's hard to not overlook the dominance that was there in this game. From what I had written down, this was Bam's game. I think Bam Adebayo had an amazing game. He had some big highlights, made threes and a dunk. I have him down here as his first missed shot was in the third quarter. So like it's one of those, and that's again a bench player playing with AD. That second unit to me is the reason why we're kind of blowing these teams out, because there's no other bench. Like these guys have to play like Carlik Jones. I don't remember the first two, but in that last game against Serbia playing 40 minutes, and my guess is he probably played 36 plus minutes in those other two games. So these guys, you're going to be exhausted if you're any of these other teams, because you have to play your best players. It's like with Serbia, you would think you got to play Jokic, you got to play Jovic, and like to me, it's like you play your NBA players as much as you possibly can, just because those are the best guys that are going to be there. Obviously, Europe and other teams are going to have. There's other players that are going to be higher quality too, but to me, it's like any chance you're going to have to combat the U.S. is that your NBA players have to step up and be huge. Like Bogdanovic had to score 30 against South Sudan for them to go to get past them. And it was the only reason they beat him is because he got super hot in that fourth quarter. Otherwise, that game was within 4 points the entire time. So that kind of happens. But yeah, so Bam had a really good game.
I like what you said about Bam, by the way. He looks like he's been he's ready to bust out his deep game in the NBA. I can tell
I know. That's the thing is, I have
Bam a shooter now. He's a 3-point shooter now. He's
multiple threes in that game. So to me, I was
jacking up 20 footers, 20+ footers, all Olympics, and he's making them consistency. I've been really impressed by that.
And I wouldn't say that we needed it, but it made up for Curry going. I got down here 0 for 6. I think he was 1 for 9. I think he finished with in that game. So he definitely had some struggles. The other thing I noticed and took note of was how many injuries we had in this game. There was Drew Holiday with the ankle, who ended up having to sit out in that game 3. Anthony Davis also had an ankle. Derek White landed on his back, really awkward. And then Anthony Edwards took a really bony knee to the thigh on trying to drive past. I think it was Omat or
the Derek White injury came from what looked kind of like a cheap shot, and this sort of plays to the style of reffing in international play that we're just not really used to in the NBA. I mean, it was just like such an obvious. It was such an obvious miscall.
That's been, I think, the biggest takeaway. Granted, and that's maybe an overblown statement, but watching all these games, the reffing seems so inconsistent. Like you'll get a non-call at one end and then the exact same thing happens at the other end and they'll get a call. And you're like, how is that one any different than this? Or was this a makeup call from 2 calls ago? So there's been a lot of that where I'm like, I don't understand what's going on. And to me, it really showed up watching the Belgium USA women's basketball game. To me, that was when I was like, obviously being a USA fan, but I could understand why Belgium was so upset in that third and fourth quarter because there were so many bad non-calls. And I'm like, I'm sitting there like, okay, why isn't this being called? Like this doesn't make sense. It's like they'll play it physical for a little while and like we'll eat the whistle, and then all of a sudden the second half, then it's like, all right, we're gonna call this tight, and it's like this. You can't do that. Like it can't be one half we're gonna not call fouls, and then the second half we are. Like it's just totally inconsistent, and it's been one of those things that's been bugging me. I will say on the ref side that I have liked has been the replay of actually like hearing what they're talking about. They're forced to like talk through the situation to see what's going on and hope that it makes sense to everybody watching. So I think I've liked that. I wish the NBA would kind of probably bring that in. It's a little more transparency in how you're making your decision as far as things go. I don't know if that's something that you've noticed or picked up on, but granted, what are your thoughts on that?
No, I mean, it's a nice insider take. I mean, I have mixed thoughts on us using the replay system. I think it's a necessary evil, but no, I think it's something that I think we should implement a timer system. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole though. But no, if there's any way that you can develop appreciation for NBA refs, watch international play, and you will see just how the level of expectation of perfection and consistency really changes on the NBA floor. So I don't want to harp on the refs too much because obviously they can dictate the game a little bit, but by only so much.
Agreed. I think this game, I'll wrap up with this, with the USA beat South Sudan 103-86. They clinched the quarterfinals with that. One of the things I noticed, there was lots of assists. I think they had close to 30 assists in this game. And my takeaway that I wrote down here at the bottom was, for me, the most exciting 5 on the floor that can kind of do anything is AD, LeBron, KD, Steph, and I would say either Booker or Edwards. I would say Booker just because he's a shooter. So you've got KD, Steph, and Booker you can put out at the wings, and then you got LeBron and AD going down the lane. To me, and like watching that was like, oh man, you can't stop this. Like if LeBron's driving, kicking, he's kicking to like these amazing 3-point shooters, or he's going to dump it off to AD down low. It's like, man, there's nothing. Trying to come up with even like a an all-time team to try to match up with that, to me, is going to be tricky, because it's like, how do you match up with these guys that can push the ball into the paint, and then you've got these guys that can kick but also can re-penetrate as well. So yeah, to me, that was watching them, those five on the floor in this game. I was like, okay, there's no way anybody can stop us when it's just these five. And my favorite player isn't even on the floor when it's those five. So I think that was a kind of a, oh, wow moment. And I was like, man, this would be fun to watch. Obviously it is fun to watch, but I find it funny that we complain about it when it's like a super team in the NBA, but yeah, we love this. So it's like, what are you guys doing? To me, it's like, it's fun when you get a bunch of stars all together. That made it fun. The Warriors were fun, even though if you weren't a Warriors fan, but that's why this team has been so fun to watch, just because it's every time.
I'm all about world domination. Bring it on. Give me the dynasties. Give me the dynasties. All the rules favor parity, but I love to see the teams break out from that, and give me all the dynasties.
That's all right.
Yeah, the mismatches were very apparent in the Puerto Rico game.
Oh yeah, that's what I was just about
to. They
were
just feeding Embiid just over and over again. I mean, why not? Why not? It's too easy.
I did miss, again, the first quarter, but that was when Puerto Rico jumped out to an early start. I think it was Waters and Alvarado hit some shots early, but then Steph came back and hit some that kind of catch them back up. What I got down here is there were some sloppy U.S. turnovers kind of the beginning. The Puerto Rico led the first quarter, or almost into the first quarter, 25-17 after an 11-0 run, but then it kind of was done after that. I've got here Anthony Edwards came in, had a whole bunch of energy, but Puerto Rico's shooting kept them in the game. They didn't get completely blown out. The USA scoring was very level. I think Edwards led the team at halftime with 12, but then there was like four other guys with like 8. But yeah, third quarter I've got here trading buckets, but the lead was still like around 19-20 for the most part, and then the defense ramped up and became a blowout. This was Anthony Edwards' game. He had 26 points with 5 minutes left, and I think he came out right after that. The one funny thing, though, that I took away from this was the USA garbage time team. So it's like the team that comes in during the blowout, and it's still like an all-star team. So it was Jason Tatum, Halliburton, Bam, Derek White, and Embiid. That's your garbage time basketball team right there. So whenever the USA's blow out, let's put in the scrubs and let's see what happens with that. So USA won that.
Still watching, all right. They better give us their best. You know, they want to get paid in this world, right?
Yeah. So the USA won that one 104-83. They ended up the number 1 seed, and like you said, they're playing Brazil on Tuesday at 2:30 Central Time. Otherwise, the other matchups that I'll list off here is Germany-Greece. So Giannis and the Greek team snuck in, and that was only because South Sudan lost by more than 2. Otherwise, they would have been bumped. Serbia, Australia, like you had mentioned. To me, probably the most intriguing matchup is France and Canada. So obviously I still have my 3 medal winners are still within the possibility. I thought Greece was going to be out. I was very worried. I was like, man, that my predictions were done. But I really like that Canada-France game. France, though, you had kind of touched on this in our last episode, and one of the things that I was expecting them was to be very dominant on defense, and they weren't. And that through the group play, they had one of the higher points in the paint allowed, and I was like, this doesn't make sense. But after I think I watched about 2 of their games and noticing how it wasn't like we're going to stand here in the middle and be the towers. Like, they got pulled out a lot more than I was expecting, and then didn't really have any shooting to kind of turn around. And like you mentioned too, it's like if Wembanyama is your point guard, like there really wasn't any other like decent ball handlers. Like there were some, I know, like Fournier is kind of, but he's much more of like a utility kind of guy. And so there were definitely some other pieces that I feel like I'm curious to see how France kind of comes out, because I feel like they're a much better team than what they showed on. Because granted, being in the group with Germany was tricky, because right now I'm thinking Germany is a much better team than I was expecting going into it. So we'll see what happens here. Granted, I wouldn't be surprised. I'm looking at that. My third place game pick is the opening round of Germany-Greece. So we'll see what happens with that. So, but as far as that goes, were anything jump out at you as far as the kind of games that are coming, or anything that you kind of watched over the last week?
So, I mean, the only thing I would touch upon right now is that I feel pretty good about my medal predictions.
I don't remember what you had picked.
I think I picked, and I guess it would. I'd have to look at how the bracket actually plays out, because I think that matters. But obviously I picked U.S. for the gold, and then I think I picked Germany silver, and I picked Canada for the bronze. And yeah, and there's something about that German team. I mean, they are a lot of fun to watch. I'm excited about their next game. I honestly, I think they're going to put a hurt on them, on Greece, and then they would play subsequently.
They would end up playing the France-Canada winner.
Yeah. So I don't know how, assuming that Canada squeaks out of that one. I don't know how that would affect the rankings for medal, and how, if they're gonna face each other, does one team get a lesser chance of, like, does that significantly affect your chance at getting bronze or versus silver? I don't know.
Well, no, it's whoever loses in the semifinals goes to the bronze medal game.
Okay, gotcha.
So there's only whoever. So yeah, if Germany wins, Canada wins, Serbia and US, those are 4 teams left, and then 2 win, and then the other 2 would play for third place.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm sticking to it.
That's fine. I will say, were there anything that surprised you about styles of play, or that you were expecting more? For me, I was expecting a little more from Canada. I think I was surprised in how their rotation ended up, of how they used Murray and Shea. They didn't really have them on the court at the same time, and that was something that kind of surprised me. It was like Jamal had like the second unit and Shea had the first. And so they had made the comment of like, Shea drives, Murray shoots. That's like, well, to me, that feels like those would work together. But I guess because they're both ball dominant, then it gives them both a chance to kind of control the ball, control the offense, and not have to kind of take a back seat to the other one, which I think works a little bit, but it's still kind of odd to me. I think you would want to have as much firepower on the floor at the same time. But they went 3-0. Granted, that last game was way closer than they only won by 2 or 3. So that gave me a little bit of worry about this team, because I thought with the roster that they have, I'm surprised that they're in any close games. To me, like, they should be beating these teams by 5, minimum 5, if not 10 or more points, just because of the talent that they have. So I was a little surprised by that. And obviously in France too, of not really having much offense, and kind of lacking in the defense. So that was kind of surprising. Anything that you would take away from what you saw?
No, it's an interesting point that you make. Maybe I do wonder if they're going to change their strategy up as they go into these knockout rounds against some juggernauts here. Maybe they will stack their offense a little bit more. I guess it would make sense that they would try to balance it out the way that the U.S. does. Make sure that there's always like an offensive juggernaut on the floor at any given time. But yeah, I mean, Shea and Murray seem like the perfect duo. If you could actually put that into an NBA team, I think that would be that would be an ideal scenario. So yeah. One guy who's more of like a two-way. I mean, both of them are decent two-way players, but one guy who's like a two-way stalwart in SGA, who, to be honest, though, both of them play well off the ball. I mean, they can they. I mean, their ball dominance is is essential to their team winning. They obviously they you want the ball in their hands, but yeah, I mean they do also play well off the ball together. So it's a little bit confusing to me as well. I don't really have much more to say about that other than we'll see if they change up the rotation moving forward.
No, yeah, it's curious to see, but it was just something I noticed and was like, that seemed kind of odd. So let's do some predictions. Or where are we at? Sorry. Do we need to cover anything else? We covered Bam as a shooter, Curry's shooting woes. To me, I feel like Curry having one bad game, and one of the comments that I saw Steve Kerr make was that if it's a regular season game and Curry goes 1 for 9 in the first half, he's got the whole second half to kind of shoot himself out of that slump. And with it being a 40-minute game, you've got 8 less minutes. And so I think he ended up pulling them in the third quarter just because they were up, and it was like, let's just clear this game out of his head. But he's like, I usually have more time to kind of give them, but with this truncated time-wise, it doesn't give you enough time, or doesn't give you more time to kind of shoot yourself out if you're a shooter. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But to me, obviously, he came back in the next game and was fine. So yeah, I would be very surprised if all of a sudden Steph Curry can't shoot a three or goes on some huge slump where he all of a sudden becomes like a 25% three-point shooter. I don't see that happening. But it's definitely something to keep an eye on. But obviously, you've got KD, Booker, Tatum. You've got other shooters in case he goes cold. So it's not like you just have Clay and then you can go double Clay. So it's obviously with this team, it just kind of makes it easy. And that's kind of it's an underthought of thinking like, oh yeah, Steph went 1 for 9, 2 points. Like, no big deal. Like, we still won by 20. Like, it's like in what other competition are you going to say that with him? So.
Yeah, it's a tough one because it does make me a little bit nervous. I wouldn't necessarily brush it under the rug or dismiss it entirely. We tend to forget that we've been talking about Curry shooting slumps over the past couple seasons now. This is not a new concept. I mean, obviously he's greatest shooter of all time, still perhaps best shooter in the NBA, even an Asian Curry here. But there's definitely something that's changed about the way his shots fall over the past couple seasons, and my guess is it would be age related. Again, we do have to remember that he is putting up about 20 shots a game on average since the beginning of his prime. So I mean, we got like a
playing in an off
season.
season.
Like, exactly. Yeah. We're used to him putting up about 20 shots a game, and now he has to be very selective about his shots. And he admitted himself, I'm forcing these. I'm forcing them because I don't know when my next shot's going to come. He's very much a rhythm player, and not just emotionally, but even physically. He's very much a rhythm player, and that as the Golden State Warriors are. And so when you're not able to get into a consistent flow, I can definitely see how that would throw him off. You do see him kind of reaching a little bit, just saying like, well, I think I should shoot now, so I'm just going to go ahead and shoot. But even that split second of hesitation is all it takes to throw off your form a little bit. That's the difference between a shot rimming out versus bottom of the net. I guess we also shouldn't forget that his presence on the floor as an off-ball guy, he's the best decoy you can ever have. So even if he's having an off shooting night, he's gonna have like one or two guys just having their eyes on him at all times, and that's their job for the entire game. And so in doing so, you're gonna open up the floor for other guys. So even the rest of the team, even though the rest of the team is shooting better than him from deep, his presence is definitely still felt. Hopefully, I'm not getting too much background noise there.
Somebody's upset about something.
I do have a toddler who just recently woke up from a nap, so that's what you guys like to hear. No, I mean, and maybe we can get more into this a little bit in the rest of the off season. But I am curious to see how Curry shoots coming into this next season, and even like as the season progresses, because a lot of his form is based on a certain like flow, just like a very specific motion, which is perfect when executed appropriately. I mean, it's like it's perhaps like the epitome of perfection. But as a guy who is a year younger than Curry, I can definitely say I feel for him, and that you're just not as springy. You're just not springy when you're not in your 20s anymore, and so there might be a little bit of loss of power underneath the shot that we're seeing, and we're seeing the effects of that. This may be a trend over the next couple of years. I would not be surprised by that.
I think, like you said, I think he'll still be a good shooter. But as somebody who tried to go and take this basketball out earlier, like I had mentioned to you, and try to put up some threes and had multiple air balls because I'm like, I'm doing the same shot that I was doing when I was playing, and it's like just not getting there. So, yeah. And granted, that's the first time I've taken shots in probably a few months or almost a year. But as you get older, as somebody who is, I don't even much older, 4 or 5 years older than Curry, as I've mentioned to you a long time ago, your body changes over time. For me, there was a peak that hit 27 and everything started happening. And it's got to happen for these professional players. But that's what makes it so remarkable seeing LeBron and KD and Steph at their age still being this competitive and this great. That's the thing. It's like Curry's not going to be the insane basketball god that he was 6-7 years ago. It's like, but he's still going to be like
he's still an all-NBA player.
Yeah, he's
still an all-NBA player.
Like the best Mike Miller would ever be on a given night. So like there's definitely going to be some sort of slowdown just because, like you said, naturally people get older. Muscles are going to move slightly slower over time, or they're going to fatigue over time. And I'm sure we could get into medical stuff about how muscles work at some point. But to me, that's something that I agree. I think we should be watching and seeing what happens. I don't, like I mentioned at the start of this, I don't expect him to drop off, but I definitely think we're not going to see, and especially losing Clay, I'm going to be very curious to see how people guard him this year and force other Warriors to shoot the three. If you're going to double him, it's like, who else is going to shoot? Like we mentioned, Kyle Anderson, or is Gary Payton Jr. still there, or did he move? I can't remember.
No. He's still there.
So there are some people that can do that, but it's like you lose Clay, you lose a great shooter. So it's like now you can key in on Steph. So it's like, how much harder is this year going to be for him? Because he's the guy that runs as much as he can to get the open shots. But when you don't have somebody else that pulls people out as much as Clay did for them, I think it's going to be curious to see how quality of a season he ends up having this year. But yes, so that's that wrap up. Let's do we've talked about the preview of the knockout rounds. Let's do predictions on the knockout rounds. I think we still had I'm still going to kind of work my medal predictions into this. And so I will let you start. What are game by game? Who do you think is going to win Germany-Greece?
Germany-Greece, I think you guys know where my heart's at. Yeah, I got to go. I mean, it would be fun to see a Greece upset, but yeah, I got to go Germany on this one.
Yeah, Giannis has been playing out of his mind. I think he's the leading scorer right now in tournament with 27 points a game, but he's got no help. I honestly was surprised to see his brother like in street clothes. I would think I'm surprised that there are 11 other Greeks that are better than Giannis's brother, but I guess so. So I was just kind of surprised by that. But then the thing is, I don't know anybody else on this team, and it's like, it's an accomplishment that they made it through to the knockout round, but barely. But it's like it's almost worse when he comes off the floor for Greece than when Jokic comes off for Serbia.
Yeah, that's a good
just
point.
Because of the length and the speed that he brings, his ball handling. Like, and granted, obviously you could say all of this, maybe not the ball handling as much for Jokic, but just his ability to find the people. And when they leave the floor, it's like, man, those are two different teams for both of those when those guys aren't on the floor. And it's like, I have to, for my medal picks, I have to pick Greece just to kind of hopefully that they get through. But I know that they're going to lose just because Germany looks too good. Germany is the second best team in this tournament from what we've seen. And to me, like, I'm going to hope for my predictions so my ego can blow up that I got it right. But I honestly, my heart is going to be like, I think, or my brain is saying Germany's going to win, but I'm going to say, let's go Greece. We'll see what happens.
Well, going back to what you said, you know what they say. Who's the least tradable player in the NBA?
Least favorable?
Least tradable player in the NBA.
I would assume Giannis.
Thanasis Antetokounmpo.
The what? Was that a joke?
Yeah. He plays garbage minutes for the Bucks.
Oh,
but he's always going to have that roster spot because of Giannis.
Yeah,
no, I don't know to be there, but he's okay. You know, he's a huge guy. He's super athletic. Not that he doesn't know how to play, but yeah, you're not going to see him get too many minutes. Sorry, I just wanted to interject with that because
no, that's fine. It's my only. The only reason why I'm curious is because and maybe it was just the lack of talent that was on the Lakers. It's like I saw him play a few times when he was in LA, or it may have been the other brother. But it was
I think it Costas. Yeah. I think you think it Costas.
So I was thinking like, well, either one of them. It's like if you're getting playing time on the Lakers, it's like you can't get playing time on Greece. Like that's I was like, what's going on? Unless he's hurt or something else behind the scenes. But yeah, I was just kind of curious of like,
he's a locker room guy.
That's fine. All right. So next game is Serbia, Australia, and so I think again this is another one we've kind of played our hand as far as what we think. But I think
that's going to be a fun game. I think that's going to be a really fun game.
I've only managed to see Australia play once, and I think that was I don't remember who it was against. It might have been Germany, if they were even in that group. No.
When when we talk about these other teams as powerhouses, the Australia, Serbia, Canada's, Germany's, these are the matchups that we're looking for to really see them on display. Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be a great game for not just X's and O's, but seeing these guys put their talent on display, watching Jokic orchestrate Serbia the way that he does, and heck, maybe Josh Giddey's going to have a triple double.
Yeah, we'll see. I was surprised that he didn't do as much. I think at the end of. I already changed it. I think they were playing Canada. But yeah, without having as much time to see Australia, I don't have much to say about them. I wish I had more to take. But I'd be very surprised if they managed to get in there. But like I said, I think it's going to be a competitive game. They're a better team than I'm thinking. Just like, Australia, like they're going to lose just because Jokic's a bigger name. And so in my head, I'm like, oh yeah, they're going to be rolled over. So like you said, I hope it's a great game. Obviously, I would lean towards Serbia just to take that one, just because I feel like that'll be a better matchup for the U.S. I think that game will be a little more compelling. To me, even though it would be fun to see LeBron and Dellavedova on the court again if they played Australia. But yeah, I just think Serbia's got too much firepower. Jokic is too big inside. I don't think Australia really has anybody that can match up with him. I do think like Giddey versus Bogdanovic will be a fun. Hope they match up against each other. But I think those two, whichever one of those has a better game, is going to probably lean that team towards getting a chance to win. But yeah, I just think
I'm picking Serbia. As well.
Obviously, we have got Brazil and USA is the next one.
Nail biter.
Yeah. I still don't know anybody on Brazil. I don't think I saw any of their games. So yeah, I'm sorry, Brazil. I can't do you justice and give you any info on your team. I'm sorry. but I think
Yeah,
you're going to lose.
yeah, we don't, yeah, we don't. We certainly want to give them some credit because they earned their spot to be here, and obviously they've advanced this far. I wouldn't be surprised if if they come out with a lot of energy and keep it close in the first half. We'll see. I know the U.S. players want that. They want to be put to the test.
Yeah. No, we'll see. And then the last matchup is Canada and France. Excuse me. And like I mentioned before, I just think France is just lacking kind of that extra oomph. I think the team is really young. I think they're going to be, I should say their core is young. I think they definitely have a couple older players, but to me, they're just not ready yet. As much as having that home court will give them energy probably to start the game. But if Canada comes out flat, I don't know. Hopefully that close game in the last game kind of lit a fire under them and let them know, like, hey, you gotta be a little bit better than what you were. But yeah, I just think Canada's got too much talent. And I'll make a bold prediction and say this will be the Dylan Brooks game. We'll see what he does and kind of take over.
He's going 6 for 6, baby. He's lighting it up.
Big 12 points.
Yeah, it's going to be another front court versus back court. Like you said, I think Canada's best move is just to pull the big guys out of the paint. With the 3 second rule that doesn't exist, with the ball being able to be robbed off the rim the way it can in this competition. I think, excuse me, they're just gonna have to do what every other team has done and just work on bringing those guys out of the paint, create those switches so that Shea does what he does best. I think that's really what's really gonna come down to. Everybody, the excitement for the French team is legitimate, but as you mentioned, we might have to wait an Olympics or two before we really start to see them be as competitive as we were hoping for. I think we have to remember that I think there was 4 French players in the first round of this NBA draft, and I know that some of them are playing on that French team this year, but it's a lot of young guys. Once we see them head into their prime, that's an Olympics or two from now, where we could be talking about this team very, very differently.
Yeah, I will say, and you made the comment about the rim protection. That has been I've enjoyed seeing that. Like once it hits the rim, like you can do whatever you want to it. Like it creates dunks, it creates just swiping the ball off of there.
Yeah,
I really like how that is in this game, and it's another one of those things. It'd be nice to see that over here. I think it's slightly unfair for Wemby because obviously he's just Euroball. Well, and I think he's aware of those rules. I think that's one thing I haven't seen the U.S. team like do a lot of has been like guarding that rim up as much as possible. So those are the predictions. It looks like we kind of agreed on all of them. I don't think there was any that we disagreed on.
I almost wish I would have just like made up a prediction for us to fight a little bit, but no, we'll see. I mean, I hope that there is some upsets, some shocking results. Obviously not for Team USA because that's what I'm rooting for.
Agreed. No, I think you hope for good basketball. I think that's why I was excited about the Serbia South Sudan game, just because it was so close through most of the game. I was disappointed it got kind of run up at the end, but yeah, that happens. So one of the things that I have to say I've enjoyed while watching this has been hearing the throwback sounds of Round Ball Rock by Mr. John Tesh and the NBA theme music from NBC. That is because, again, I don't think you remember when NBC used to have basketball. Like they were the main person. You would turn on basketball at noon on Saturday or Sunday, and there it would go off. And so to me, like hearing that and knowing that it's coming back has been something I'm excited about, even though I am very, very disappointed that we are losing TNT to Amazon and then thus losing the Inside the NBA show. Obviously, it would be great if they could somehow get Shaq, Kenny, and Charles somewhere, but obviously Ernie is not going to leave TNT. Just he's a company guy. He's going to be with them until he dies. So just knowing that that's the end of that show is disappointing. The chemistry has been something I think a lot of people enjoyed, just kind of the antics between Chuck and Shaq and Kenny trying to poke each one of them to kind of get it going. And then just Ernie being Ernie. I think it's hard not to like Ernie Johnson if you're a sports fan, just because he's been so great through so many different, whether it's baseball, basketball. I think he did golf for a while too. So there's definitely been times where Ernie Johnson has been a part of our life. And I hope it doesn't end this with this. Obviously, I guess I'd have to watch a lot more TBS baseball maybe, and I don't think that's going to happen. But so yeah, I was just curious to know what your thoughts on how the NBA viewing rights kind of shook out.
Well, I as a viewer, I certainly am a little bit nervous about how many streaming services I'm going to have to purchase in order to watch all the NBA games I want to watch. But yeah, I mean, certainly sad to see. Certainly sad to see TNT lose their rights. I hope they don't make too big of a stink about it. I don't think that there's going to be this like huge litigation or anything like that. But and it is, I don't know. It's going to be a tough thing to replicate for sure. I think there's going to be attempts. I think there's going to be some failures. I wouldn't be surprised if we end up seeing this same crew on a different network. I mean, we have to remember that the networks that were able to be more competitive with these new agreements, they can probably buy out the contracts of these guys.
I think Barkley has said that he's done. Obviously, Shaq will take a check from anybody. And I would assume Kenny Smith wants to stay relevant. So I could see those two moving on. I don't know about Chuck. I think he might go off into the sunset or run for governor of Georgia again or whatever it might be. I don't know if he wants to kind of start over and kind of do that if it is, unless you do have that whole crew. But I think it would be pretty tricky to get everybody. I don't see any of them going to ESPN. It's like, are they going to go to NBC or are they going to go to Amazon? I don't see that happening, but it'd be great if they did. I got a feeling we'll do podcasts and stuff around it. Kind of, I think Ernie and Chuck have like the steam room, so they'll do content. I don't
think we've seen the end of this. There might be a different rendition, maybe a slightly different crew, but I think we're going to see some continuity with it. I don't think it's going away for good.
All right, so that's that. We did have, it's one thing we can kind of quickly touch on. We might have mentioned it before. I think I have the note that we already touched on it, was the JJ Redick hire. I think we'll probably push this one later on just because we get close to the NBA season. It might be a little more relevant to kind of discuss that. So that brings us to our trivia and tactics, which today has been brought to you by T4 Medical. Physicians Services Reimagined. Our experienced medical professionals put your residents' needs first. We are proud to provide a high-quality level of holistic customer service, medical experience, and a commitment to health and wellness to all of our patients. By providing on-site care as well as utilizing an on-call service, our team of providers can deliver proactive, evidence-based care 24 hours a day. Our goal is to treat your residents' physical and mental well-being with the highest level of professionalism as quickly as possible, all while reducing your rehospitalizations. Head to t4medical.org for more information. That's t4medical.org. Now, Bobby, you got some trivia for me?
Yeah. So that brings us to our trivia question. We're gonna start simple, but this is a fun one, a good off-season question. It's something that comes up often when we talk about Victor Wembanyama because we may see number 5 here, but there have been 4 quadruple doubles in NBA history. Name those players.
Man.
One each. We haven't seen a 5th guy do it. We haven't seen a 5th quadruple double. We might. I believe those days are coming up here. We're certainly going to see a lot of 5x5 games, which
Yeah. I think that was one of the questions I was thinking of too. Was like there was somebody who I'd just seen was like the first guy to do like a 5x5 or something like that. I'm gonna okay. I'm
here.
trying to think.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Can I get a date range? When was the first
Here,
one? And like, is this
how about this? Throw out some early guesses, and then I'll start giving you the years in which these quadruple doubles occurred.
the first one that comes to my head is Magic Johnson. Like just because of his versatility, I thought maybe he might have gotten steals, but it's to me it's steals and blocks that might be hard for a guard, even though he played center in the finals.
So only one of the quadruple doubles happened as a result of steals. The other have been ten
blocks.
blocks. Yeah.
Oh, I know one. I know. What's his name? He played for the Heat. Then he moved to Portland. Oh, because he said I only get triple doubles or something. Oh, I cannot think of his name.
Here, I'll start giving you the years.
I was gonna say that.
The first one occurred in 1974. The second in 1986, followed by 1990, and then 1994. I somewhat expect you to get the last two. These are definitely players that you grew up watching. Think versatile big men. Versatile big men that could just put up some huge numbers.
Olajuwon.
That's one. That's 1990. 18 points, 16 rebounds, 11 blocks, 10 assists.
David Robinson.
That's 1994. Okay. 34 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists, 10 blocks. Wow, he really just scraped by. It's definitely it's okay. It's okay if you don't get these next two. These are
Malone.
These are really throwback. That's a great guess. So 1986, Alvin Robertson with 20 points, 11 rebounds, 10 assists, and 10 steals. And then going back further to the first quadruple double, the one and only Nate Thurmond, 22 points, 14 rebounds, 13 assists, and 12 blocks.
I know that name. I didn't know the other one.
Alvin Robertson.
Did he play for the Bucks?
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay, then I vaguely can see maybe I had a card of his or something.
Probably. Gosh, I hope you hold on to that one.
I couldn't tell you where my cards are.
If I wasn't mistaken, I believe. Let's see. The Nate Thurmond one could have occurred while he was playing for the Bulls. It was either I would have to see exactly whether it was the 73-74 season with the Warriors or the 74-75 season with the Bulls, but that may have been a Chicago Bulls stat there.
Well, then I'm trying to figure out who I was thinking of because there was somebody who played with the Heat who would get like double doubles or triple doubles with blocks. Like he would always get 10 blocks, and I cannot think of his name. And it was only because I watched plenty of Levitard.
I mean, what era are you talking? You talking about like Alonzo Mourning or?
No. This is like within the last 4 years. He was a Heat player, and then he got traded to Portland. And I want to say it's like Cunningham, but I know that that's not the name. I'm
traded to Portland. Well, if it's not Bam Adebayo, which I mean certainly Bam Adebayo can throw it on a triple double, but I would think
he was
on Whiteside.
That's it.
Yeah.
I
could not picture. It would have to occur by accident for Hassan Whiteside to get a 10 assists in a game. He would have to get both steals and blocks. It would have to be an amazing, unheard of stat line.
Well, it was something that he made a quote where he's like, I get double doubles with blocks or something. So it was like he got like 10 blocks. He had like some streak with the Heat where he had 10 blocks in a row.
I see a lot of guys in the NBA getting triple doubles with assists. Ain't nobody doing it with blocks. So I know I had to come out here and nobody's doing it with blocks.
Oh well, I got 2 right with hints.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
I'll take it. So yeah, but yeah, that's. I think we were thinking we would have more, but this ends up right around the same time that we had. Was there anything else on your mind that you needed to get out? I know this is your basketball word vomit session, so that Erica doesn't have to hear it. So what else you got? Is there anything that's on the top of your mind that feel that you need to get out?
I mean, loads, but we can perhaps save some of this for the rest of the off season. Certainly, nothing else for me to add on Olympic basketball, which seems to be a little bit more your expertise this summer.
That's okay. I will say, since this is Bucket Bros, I want to make sure that we are gender inclusive. I have really enjoyed watching that game last night. One thing I kind of wanted to, I heard somebody say this on TikTok or something, and it made me think, and it happened because I had just watched the women's game, was that everybody complains about how the NBA is too soft and how it's kind of, people are flailing about. The guy mentioned that the WNBA is what the NBA was in the 90s. This is a physical game. Like, I feel like when Caitlin Clark started in the NBA, the only thing I saw was the hard fouls on her. And it was like, man, this are looking like Lambeer and Joe Dumars type fouls. Like, the WNBA and the skill and even within the Olympic game has been very physical. And to me, like, this, if anybody's complaining about the NBA game, it's like, and you want the hard-nosed 80s, 90s basketball, I guess you got to go watch the WNBA because that's where it's happening. So I was like, man, it's really insightful and was something I didn't even think about. But after watching, I was like, I was in my head thinking, like, this is a lot more physical than I thought. Like, there was a lot more bodies flying around. And granted, I hadn't, even though my father-in-law has become a huge Caitlin Clark fan, and all of a sudden, like, that's all he wants to talk about is WNBA. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm behind a little bit. But to me, it's cool that this has kind of come about in the last year or two. It seems like it's been Caitlin Clark, like, turned on the intensity for people to enjoy the women's game. But to me, in my head, it's like, to me, it's sad because there's been so much great basketball. I remember when Dawn Staley was a player on the Dream Team in '92 and watching Lisa Leslie and Rebecca Lobo and all these other players back in the day. And it's almost like, where were you guys back then? Not saying that I'm somebody special. I'm not watching WNBA on the regular, but to me, like, the game is beautiful. If you enjoy basketball, make sure you're watching the women's games too, because they're great games. Breanna Stewart and I'm going to say her, Aja Wilson, and these players they're dominant, and it's been fun to watch them play. And to me, it's like, it's sad that I, unfortunately, really only pay attention every 4 years, but I think we all only have so much attention span that it's hard to kind of grab everything. I can't watch, like, me binging this basketball the last couple of weeks has been the most basketball I've watched in probably 3 or 4 years. But I think once I'm in it, because I've loved basketball since I was a kid and never really had a reason unless to do this type of thing, which has gotten me excited to kind of get in and get out there and watch. But yeah, we definitely have been very men centric, and we probably will be continuing on, but I want to make sure that we're open this up. If we have basketball conversations and want to talk about Diana Taurasi and how her legacy, or for me, my favorite, Sabrina Ionescu, and watching her shush the Belgium crowd at the end of that game after hitting that deep three, I thought was awesome. And it's those type of things is what gets me into watching them. So that was my piece to kind of wrap up this. Have you had a chance to watch anything other than men's basketball with the Olympics?
I've hardly had a chance to watch any basketball, but I strongly encourage everybody to give it a peek because yeah, I mean, you said it, the intensity and the flow of those games are unbelievable and definitely worth watching. So shame on me for not taking the extra time, because they certainly have earned it.
So we will leave you with this. We're going to make sure we hit you with the fadeaway, and we will come back at you soon, probably next week after the finals. I hope you guys enjoy the knockout rounds this week, and make sure to comment and let us know what you guys think, your predictions. We want to hear what you guys are thinking, and let us know where we were wrong. So hopefully I have a much longer list of errors and omissions next week. But yeah. Any parting words, Bobby?
Thanks for listening. Yeah, all feedback is appreciated. We'll keep it coming.
All right. And with that, we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching the Bucket Bros.